Hello and welcome to busyworksbeats.com. Today we bring back the podcast here at busyworksbeats.com. I need you guys to smash that like button. So I've heard a lot of rhetoric around ethical AI and AI and music being ethical or not ethical, but I want to give you guys information so that we're speaking from a logical point of view and not just this, whisper down the lane, distorted point of view, because a lot of people are, really pushing fear and propaganda and fear mongering to get you guys to rile up and rally up against this AI demon that they keep positioning AI as. And if you understand AI and like how it actually works, I really question the word ethical. What is ethical? Okay, so let's just start with what is ethical? What does that even mean? So if you go into the basics of morality and ethics, those are two separate concepts. I'm not here to teach you guys philosophy. Okay, but morality is basically, imagine you're in a circle. Okay. Your morality keeps you within this circle. Okay, it's your beliefs, what your values, your different things. It's all about you and how you control yourself. Ethics is when you go outside of this circle, then you have to deal with other people because now you're stepping on somebody else's circle. That's called ethics. So when people tell other people what to do based on their own morality and then call it ethics, that's where the lines get kind of crossed, in my opinion, because now we're conflating morality with ethics. But that's a very beginner portion to this conversation. I want to talk about how AI actually works, and forgive my Wi-Fi. Sometimes it glitches out here and there. But the main thing is to understand this is diffusion. So, they call it Gaussian, noise, but basically when you have white noise, for example, you can actually add filters to white noise to give it a tone. That's what these machines are doing for the most part. There's two different ways these machines work. They could either create noise and chisel it away until it has a different harmonic structure. That would be called your diffusion models. Okay, so similar to how images are created, it starts with this blurry thing. It keeps chiseling down until it creates the image. Same thing with audio. We could take white noise, which I showed you guys many times, and chisel it down. So it's creating from scratch. I think a lot of people, the first point I want to make here, I think a lot of people are pushing the idea that AI is going into some database that it was trained on, pulling your song and outputting something from your song as if it were a sample. That's not how AI works. One thing it does is called latent space, I think is the technical term for it. When an AI trains on your material, and I'm not an expert on everything AI, machine learning, but the concept is when it understands your song, it's not recording your song and storing it onto a database. It's looking at the patterns of ones and zeros, and it's saying, okay, here's the pattern of ones and zeros I see. Okay, they tend to be more up tempo in this genre. It tends to be around 150. It tends to have more bass. It tends to have this or that, 808 versus a electric guitar. So it's not studying the concepts, the musical concepts. That's what the human curation layer is for. Because even if a machine learns music on everybody's music in the world, it still needs a human layer to say, okay, that's an actual 808. That's an actual electric bass. The computer doesn't even know what that is. So you still have a curation layer that you have to add. But I think the fundamental misunderstanding people are having about AI, and I'm not here to, I don't have an AI company. I just want you guys to be educated so that we're not reacting out of emotion. There are a lot of people, a lot of content creators, Curtis King, for example, pushing this thing where he's really questioning the ethics of AI, but does Curtis King know how AI works? He never really explains how it works. But when you understand how it works, you have to understand, okay, well, now I know how it works. Let's revisit this concept. So firstly, you have diffusion models. That's when you take white noise, you chisel it down, you create a whistle, you create tones, you create harmonics. Okay. And the machine studies the patterns the same way I study the patterns. I go, okay, if I want a Tyler the Creator type vibe, okay, Tyler the Creator is known to go from, major chords to minor chords and vice versa. Okay, I studied not Tyler the Creator. I'm not copying and pasting his song. I'm studying the concepts that he's using. The machine does the same exact thing. And then I go, okay, most R&B folks add that turnaround chord. Okay, or if we want to go Pharrell, we could end it on a happier. Okay, so these are concepts. I'm not copying and pasting. I'm not sampling a Pharrell song. I'm going, okay, what's in the Pharrell song? What's in the Tyler the Creator song? Okay, is it where they switch, minor chords? They revoice? Or if I play like this, I could play it that way, or I could play the Neptune, quote unquote, Neptune's way. Okay, so it's just studying. The machine understands how to study music on a level that humans can't even study. And that's the cool part that we need to embrace about AI, is that this is an analytical studying machine. So when you guys saw companies like a Suno, they say admit as if they did something wrong, scrape the internet to look for information that they could study. The machine is studying. And that is actually fair use. If you look up the fair use, studying and research is part of fair use. The same way teaching on YouTube is fair use. Okay. So I think a lot of people are conflating these rally cries because people don't like what happens with AI. For example, let's just go back a step to talk macro real quick, because in the macro market, you have, folks losing real jobs to AI, like at Amazon, factory workers are being replaced with robots and all these different things. Okay. And that's the conversation that people are thinking is happening in music. Music never had jobs. And let's just go to the core of this. The music that most people are complaining about, like Suno, for example. You know what I'm typing into Suno? 1970s black soul. The majority of people complaining that it stole from them are people making trap beats, R&B beats, digicore. No, none of them are making 1970s anything. Okay, so I think we are, as a community, listening to a lot of folks. Like I said, Curtis King is known for this, and including my name in this conversation, trying to create me as an enemy. Okay. But they are giving you guys misinformation, not the full truth. They're not giving you the technology. Ask them, how does AI work? Do any of them know how AI works? Ask them in the comments. Do you know how AI works? They're probably going to ban you and delete you because that's how they act. Okay. So you guys need to understand this. The first way is noise turned into tone. That's called diffusion. Okay. Now the other way is called auto-regressive modeling. I talked about this years ago. Auto-regressive is like this. When you guys go into what is called Edison in FL Studio, you could zoom in all the way and you see different sample points. The same way in calculus, you can basically measure a curve by guessing the area of a rectangle underneath the curve and then using calculus to calculate the arch of the curve underneath the curve, depending on the ratio of curvature. So basically, you're estimating the area underneath the curve using calculus. The goal of calculus is to guess the next sample point and the curvature of the sample point. The same way your converters and your audio interface work is that they are taking analog signal and they're trying to mirror the same exact thing, but convert it into ones and zeros. But the main thing they have an issue with or trouble with is perfecting the sample points, because in real life, we don't have these sample points that a computer has. We're hearing it in real time, whereas a computer has to translate these digital sample points. So it has to take, I'm trying to think, I guess it has to take real life and put it into a picture that looks like real life, if I had to put it into an analogy. And sometimes that's where error occurs because it miscalculates the next point. So auto-regressive modeling is about taking a sample point the same way your LLMs work. So if you use ChatGPT, if you use the Apple iPhone, if you use any smartphone, truly, if you use any LLM, Claude, ChatGPT, Gemini, you are using AI. Okay. Now, again, it goes back to what people consider ethical. What does ethical even mean? We're going to get into it deeper in this conversation, but I want to start with these basic points so that people can follow along. Now, auto-regressive is where we take a sample point. We guess the next sample point based off of what's called probability. So for example, let's make this musical. I can go, okay, I'm playing D minor. Now I'm going to go up to E dominant. Now I say, okay, what follows E dominant? Chances are I'm going to play the tonic, which is 7 notes down from here. Okay. Now I could go randomly anywhere else, but it won't be the traditional expected tone. I could do something quirky like that. Or I could do something like this. Man, my finger keeps slipping. Let's try this one more time. I could do something like this. Okay. But that's a rare occasion where I would do something like that. So we're basing this off of what's called probability. The same way, when you play blackjack, there's a probability that you're going to turn over certain cards. Some people count cards using probability. Okay. It's a probabilistic, if that's a word. So auto-regressive is the same technology. It's not copying Spin's 808 and pasting it into your generation. It's not copying a melody from Splice and putting it into your generation. I think people really think that's how AI works. And that's why they keep calling it unethical and how it trained on all these people's stuff. Do you understand what trained means? Trained does not mean it recorded my song and takes all of my song and puts it into somebody else's song. That's not what trained means. Trained is, okay, hey, this song is a high BPM. It has a trance kick in it where it's, like a falling pitch kick. It has, it just studies it to a microscopic level, stuff that you guys and myself would not even study. Okay. So I don't want to put it just on you. So auto-regressive says we're going to take a sample point, guess the next point. It's math. Okay. It's using probabilistic math. It's creating from scratch. And the main two models, auto-regressive and diffusion, create from scratch. They do not copy and paste anything. So when people talk about ethical anything, I'm a sound designer, I'm a music producer, I teach this stuff. Teaching and learning is the concept of looking at somebody else's stuff, saying, okay, if I want a Travis Scott vibe, I'm going to go minor chord, C sharp minor. Then I'm going to hit them with the major chord starting at D. I have a Travis Scott vibe. Am I now copying Travis Scott? Does Travis Scott own these chords? Or what, did they exist and Travis Scott just made it cool to do this? And I think this conversation ultimately, when we talk about ethical AI, and we're going to get into attribution and all this stuff, why that's a fallacy, is because let's just keep my main points, the main points. Here, there's two models, diffusion, auto-regressive modeling, okay? They create from scratch. That's my point here, guys. And I guess when you don't understand that, you're always going to demonize AI. You're going to think that it took something from somebody else. Again, I think the term is called latent space, where these machines, they're not storing your song. They're taking the concepts from your song and putting that into their understanding. Okay. So again, like I said, I think a lot of these people just see headlines of how these major labels are coming after Suno and all that. That's because the major labels don't have technology. They don't know how to keep up with the market. So they have to attack and they have to go, oh, it's not fair use. What is fair use? Fair use, like I said, if you look up the definition of fair use, it says you could use it for research and analysis. That's what these machines are doing. They're doing research and analysis. I can scrape data when it's public. If your song is posted online in the public, it's public. I could study it, okay, for analysis and research. That's what these machines are doing. They're taking concepts out of the music and creating their own probabilistic algorithms to create something new. So again, humans are doing the same thing. I'm going, okay, Travis Scott just dropped a new album. Okay, what did he use? What kind of chords? You guys even take it deeper. You go, what exact sound did he use? What exact melody did he use? Okay. But I go, okay, what kind of chords did he use? Minor chord, major chord. So we humans do the same exact thing, if not worse. And this is why I wanted to bring up this conversation, because you guys have to be real with yourself. You can't demonize AI and then make a drum kit where you literally copy and pasted somebody else's trap snare and then say AI copied you. AI didn't copy you, it created from scratch. Same way I'm a sound designer, I can hear Spins 808 and I can make my own 808 from scratch. It might sound Spins-esque, but I did not copy and paste the Spins 808. So until you truly understand music to that level, you might not comprehend where I'm coming from. Now here's my main, topic, I guess, of today is the main argument of ethical AI is so that there's attribution, to compensate artists. And I go, as a person who understands AI on a different level, I'm not saying I'm an expert at AI. You can't attribute a genre. You can't go, okay, I want R&B loops, which most people are typing in 1970s black soul. Who are you going to attribute 1970s black soul to? If you type in 90s R&B loop, who gets the attribution? You can't claim attribution. If you say, okay, Chris Brown now gets attribution for all of the 90s R&B generations, and then how do you say that Chris Brown invented the entire genre of R&B when everybody contributed to it? So the fundamental flaw of attribution is that if you are using like a BeatStars, for example, now their model is based off of, and I contributed initially to this project and I backed out of it because I saw how the other people were moving and I backed out of it. So they have something called, I think it's called Seeds, if I'm not mistaken. And it's a whole monthly payment plan or something through Lemonade, where basically I generated, I think it was 500 or 200 to 500 melodies. I forget how many I created. And I gave that to their team to go study to create the BusyWorks Beats model. Okay. So the problem I had with the BeatStars thing that they invited me to and wanted me to be a part of, and I backed out, was that when we were negotiating as a team going, okay, I'm cool with people using these melodies. I'm cool. Everything was cool. And on the back end, these guys were like, okay, how much percentage publishing do you want if somebody gets a placement with a melody? I'm going, wait, okay, they're not using my same exact melody and my same exact notes. We're talking about a melody that was generated by the machine that I did not create, but the machine was trained on myself, but it created something brand new. And then you want me to take more percentage from the customer? That seems so greedy to me. And I backed out immediately. I was like, this is how you guys are thinking? No, thank you. That was super greedy because again, it's not a melody I created. Yes, I contributed 200 melodies to this AI machine learning, but I didn't create whatever came out of that amalgamation. That's something brand new. So for that reason, I backed out because now we're getting into the sticky weeds of how do you attribute melodies that are brand new? How do you attribute? I can understand a vocal model having an attribution. Like if you specifically want the Chris Brown vocal AI model, I can see where a Chris Brown could get compensated for using his vocal model. When it comes to music production, it's like, how do you compensate the concept of a minor chord or the concept of me just playing, a raised third here? That's music theory. I didn't invent that. That's just music theory. That's just something I chose to do. So that's where I think it really gets sticky is when, it's not just somebody's likeness. You're talking about just somebody's concepts they use. That's when I think there is no such thing as ethical AI. And even if, let's say we all just fall into this ethical AI nonsense, in my opinion, okay? Ethical AI. So, or AI music, I should say. So ethical AI music. Great. Okay, now you're going to have to use the BusyWorks Beats model because you like his chords. But then you like the, Curtis King drums. So now you're getting the EDM drums from 2011. Then you want the Ron Got the Recipe bass guitar. It's like, you're going to be limited to how you're going to be able to create. You're not going to be able to just say 1970s Black Soul, surprise me. You're going to have to use these defined parameters that only we created through our perspectives. And ultimately, I think we're limiting ourselves more than we understand. And let's say, here's a little bit more of a mind exercise, is let's say ethical AI became mainstream, which it's not, okay? Let's just say it became mainstream. Well, ultimately, how do you attribute R&B and how do you attribute 1970s Black Soul? Who gets the credit for that? Does the platform get the credit? Because that seems like what they want. They want the credit because they know people are not going to be super specific when they type in their prompts. I want a BusyWorks Beats chord progression with a Ron Got the Recipe bass line, and they're not going to be that specific. Okay. And that's what they're banking on. If you guys fall for the ethical thing, these platforms just want you guys to be dumb enough to not understand it, because when you understand it, it doesn't make any sense. How do you attribute, meaning how do you give credit when I type in 90s R&B to anybody? Nobody singularly created 90s R&B. It doesn't make sense. And then if you're going that far to say, okay, Teddy Riley created 90s R&B, he definitely created New Jack Swing. But let's just say New Jack Swing. Okay, now anything New Jack Swing goes to Teddy Riley. If that's true, then we also have to go deeper. Okay, now how did Teddy Riley get his samples? Oh, it's from this record, that record, that record. Well, now we got to incorporate all these other people. And now it's like down to the snare drum. It's like, who owns the Yamaha snare drum sound? Like the one shot of a Yamaha. Now we're getting so specific that, that's where people become overreaching with this issue of copyright. And here's one thing I'll say is if a law has to protect you, let's put it this way. If a law is the reason your business exists, you don't have a business. Let me say that again. If a law exists specifically where your business exists because of this law, you don't have a business. So if you look at music, the only thing really giving you, most of it depends on how you operate music, but the only thing truly protecting you guys is copyright. If copyright didn't exist, what is music? It has infinite supply and it has whatever demand it has. And we all know price goes up based off of the ratio of supply to demand. So do you really have a business if copyright didn't exist? Do you have a business? If the question is no, then we need to revisit how to build a business. If the question is yes, because of copyright, then that's the only thing you can rely on in this case is copyright to protect you in the future, not you arguing against technology. So like I said, if we talk copyrights and that language about, these machines are stealing from artists, whatever that means, okay, then you have to go, do you own the trap snare that you took from Young Chop? Do you own the splice sample that you use for your beat? Do you own the bass line that you didn't create and got from Spectrasonics and you're licensing that sound? We could break it all the way down. And if you all break it all the way down, you truly don't own anything if you don't create it yourself. So truly, when you guys argue ethical AI, you're actually arguing against yourself. And if you guys understand the bigger picture, if these platforms just take credit for 1970s black soul, 90s R&B, 2000s R&B, all we're doing is creating a bigger division, okay, from the rich and the poor. We're creating a bigger chasm. The same thing we did when you guys rallied up against Suno, Udio. I told you guys what was going to happen. I told you record labels are going to try to swoop in and take over these companies because that's how they work. They're in the game of mergers and acquisitions, and they decided to acquire through a threat these companies. Notice they didn't destroy the companies. If it was truly about ethics and morality, they would have destroyed the company. But no, they kept the company alive so they could take control of it, because it's not about ethics and morality. It's about them dominating their monopoly. Okay, so I want you guys to think for yourselves moving forward. Okay, now that you understand AI music is not somebody copying and pasting a song onto a hard drive in a database, it literally does the same thing we do. We listen to an album, we go, okay, that's the Nas album. I like the Nas beats. He did this type of sampling. He did that. We're doing the same exact thing when music comes out. We are acting more like a machine than the machines are acting like a machine. The machine at least studies the microscopic concepts. You got to be honest to say music producers literally want to copy so bad, they want the exact presets Playboi Carti used, the exact sound somebody used. That's copying. If you want to truly get down to it, that seems more copyist than anything. But so we got to be accountable from ourselves, our own point of view. Okay. Now, before, because it was mentioned in some clips, and that's why I hate when people take my stuff out of context, but I'm not here to have a word battle. Like, what's the point of a word battle? But people have taken my stuff out of context. Curtis King is pushing this propaganda again. As you guys can see, what does he do outside of divide the community? Does he have any technical skill? Does he teach you guys anything? Or is it all just gossip and talk? I just want to ask you guys basic questions. Now he has some girl mentioning my name, okay, in his clips. So put it this way, for the person who had all these things to say, initially when I went against Timbaland, I was up in arms for what's called the Beat Club. If you weren't around for those times to see the issue with Beat Club, then again, I don't see how people are speaking on anything. Because basically, long story short, Beat Club was created by Timbaland outside of Versus to, what was the mission? I guess the mission was to give people placements. That was the main thing. Okay, and he had some sound kits on there. And so he was the head of this thing. And basically he was on Twitch playing people's music. The goal was, let's galvanize all these artists and producers and give them placements. That's kind of what the point was. So then what happened was there was a music producer who had a channel that was almost at 100K. And it had a couple Timbaland clips on it from their interviews or whatever happened. They worked together. It was a miscommunication. I forget all the details now. It's been years. And they took down his channel because he used some stuff that they didn't clear. Okay, even though he edited it and made it completely different, they took it down because of whatever. Okay, and I had a problem with that on the back end because I went through all this before. I just don't want to bring up all this past stuff. My point is, that was my initial issue with Beat Club, and Timbaland was the face of Beat Club. So I was addressing Timbaland from years ago. And I said, okay, Timbaland, we're at it again with this Suno thing. And I wasn't talking about the ethics of Suno. That was never my argument, was the ethics of Suno. My point was, we are growing a community to mislead them somewhere else. Because my point was, what was the point of Beat Club if ultimately we're going to create Tata, which the whole point of Beat Club, in my opinion, was to give people opportunities. Okay. Then if somebody says, okay, well, F you guys, I'm just going to create my own AI and we're going to just pass the opportunities to my AI. That was poor leadership to me. Okay. That's what I was speaking about, is how we are galvanizing a people for the mission of placement. And then later I create my own artist where I'm going to, give them the placements instead of you guys. Sorry. That was what I was talking about, not the ethics of Suno, because I was using Suno and teaching people how I use Suno. So, when people take my words out of context to spin a narrative, I just, like I said, I'm not going back and forth with the Curtis King. What's the point? He just keeps talking and talking and talking. Just ask him, guys, how does AI work? Teach us music theory. Teach us music production. Or are you just going to talk and talk and talk and talk? I'm not about talking. We're talking about solutions. If we're not going to get to the truth about the matter, what is the point of talking? Now we're just talking about, we're just throwing mud at each other. What's the point? Okay, so again, my issue with ethical AI is about, the fallacy of attribution. There's no such thing as giving somebody attribution for something that multiple people contributed to. And like I said, the platforms benefit from vague attribution. The same way, you guys complain about how these black boxes get paid to the record labels. It's the same thing with AI generation. If you create, hold on, my camera's like glitching. If you guys create ethical AI and you have this like ambiguous attribution, where does that money go? Oh, now it goes to the black box because they can't attribute it to any one creator. So it goes to the black box, which is the majority of searches. Nobody's searching up Chris Brown vocals all the time. They're just searching R&B loop and whatever pops out, but they don't attribute that to anybody. So, which means the platform will now have this mysterious black box of credits and money that is absorbed. Okay. And who does that go to? So you're talking about a scheme. That's the scheme. I'm telling you guys, this is how it's going to work if you guys are sitting here believing about ethical anything AI. Okay. Like I said, AI is not copying and pasting snares. It's studying patterns. Okay. And if you look at the fair use law, it says research and analysis. I'm allowed to research as many songs as I want and say, okay, here's the chord progression they're using this. Okay, what is as a human, we could do that. Why are we stopping a machine from doing it and doing it more efficiently? So that's where I think that fallacy and argument falls apart. Now, lastly, I already said how we learn as humans. It's the same exact way the computer learns. It's just more structured, in my opinion, as a computer, more intent. It has more intent behind it. Humans are a little more all over the place. And I'll just keep my last points to this. To me, AI is like an instrument. The same way I had to learn Omnisphere and learn this keyboard, I'm learning how to get AI to do the stuff I want it to do. It's the same thing. And for the people who want to just go on to Suno, type in, make me a rock song, outprint a rock song, and they upload it, good for them too, because now we have more attention on music. Think about the pandemic where everybody was at home. You saw music peak up like you never saw before. It's because that's what people truly want to do. They don't want to sit at their 9-to-5 jobs, stare at a computer screen, and be bored to death. They want to do creative stuff, but they can't do creative stuff when they're tied to a job. So during the pandemic is when we, for the first time probably in human history, we've seen people actually go for what they actually want to do, their passion, because they saw so much death and misery around them. They were like, why am I living in this misery? If this were my last day, here's what I would do. That's what we saw people do in the pandemic. So to me, more people, falling in love with music all over again, that benefits all of us as music creators. And for the people saying that it's stealing your jobs, first of all, music is not a job. Name one job you could find on Indeed that says anything about music production. You probably can't. If anything, it says music director of some choir or music teacher here or music executive here. There's no such thing as a music producer job. Actually, let me do this in real time. So I'll just name a couple jobs they have. On-air talent for looks like a university radio station, news podcast producer, football producer, manager music direction of a carnival cruise, on-air personality, music director of a small company, it looks like, DJ and board operator, DJ, associate producer, singers. It says nothing about music producer. That's not a job. And I'm not saying it doesn't add value. I'm saying it's not a job. The same way BusyWorks Beats is not a job. It's a business that offers services and information and courses and sounds and software. I'm an operation. This is an entrepreneurship enterprise. I didn't have a job. So for example, and for the people who want to say, boo-hoo, I'm losing my job to X, Y, and Z, I have empathy as a human, firstly. But secondly, I want you guys to man up and say, maybe this is time for you to focus on yourself and develop your own skills. For example, when I was in post-college, for example, I graduated 2013 and I was in pre-med in college. So long story short, I got an internship because I created it. Okay. It did not exist before I created it because I was the president of a pre-med club and we opened up a lot of opportunities for kids that never existed before. Okay. We're talking about Lincoln Hospital, Penn Hospital, Jefferson Hospital, Thomas Jefferson Hospital out of Philadelphia. I want to say John Hopkins, but I can't remember all the hospitals we opened up opportunities for. They never existed before I created the pre-med club and wanted to help other people. And that opened up more doors because we have leverage, with these. And basically I created it is my point. Okay. So after college, what was it? 2013 is when I graduated. Okay. I researched 2 years. Actually, it was during college. I researched 2 years. Okay. At Thomas Jefferson in the emergency department. This is the most intense area you can be in a hospital is the emergency department. I was doing research specifically for 2 years. Now, the first year I was kind of like, kind of nervous, and not really nervous, but just kind of not as confident. The second year, once I learned how to sell and be my own entrepreneur and own my own business and do all this stuff and copywriting and all the skills that it takes to be an entrepreneur, the second year, okay, I was the best person on the team by miles and miles. Like, I had to be 10 times better than the top person that was behind me. Now, here's the reason I'm bringing up this story is because even though I was in the traditional medical system, coming from a great college, Villanova University, biology major, pre-med president, opened up doors for all these other people. I went into this brand new, place, Thomas Jefferson Hospital, was in there for 2 years for free. Okay. Doing research for free. The other people getting the paychecks. So I went to apply because I think it was my senior year. I went to apply for the next layer up, which was the paid position, okay, where I had nothing but white women managers above me. It was like 3 to 4 white women managers above me. Now, they were so not good at our task that I had to train them on how to do the task better to get better results, okay, just so you guys understand how the system works, even if you're the best at what you do, okay? I had an opportunity where I could apply to be a manager. Now, I was the best by at least a factor of 10x. Okay, quantitative, whatever the word is. You could put it on paper and say he's better by this much because of his results. But even though I was the best, even though I applied, even though I helped the managers be better, they still didn't hire me. Okay, and that's when I learned the hard lesson, not just because I'm black, even though I probably was threatening and had all this confidence coming in and I'm a man and all this type of stuff. That might have been the reason why. But my point is, you could be the best of the best of the best of the best, and people could still say no because of whatever. They find you as a threat. And I said, okay, if I can't control my destiny, how is that ever going to help me in life? Where somebody could just say no, and then my whole opportunity just falls apart because somebody said no. I said, I'm never living like that again. And that's when I put all my energy into my own business. And that's where, when you guys talk about jobs this and jobs that, Busy Workspace is not a job. I had to create opportunity. The same way I created my opportunity to do research in Thomas Jefferson. I had to create Busy Workspace. I had to create the content, 7,000 free videos plus. I had to create the platforms. I had to create the marketing. I had to create, the sounds, the plugins. I had to create this stuff. You are now becoming a creator, and there's no more running away from being a creator in this new era. I want you guys to be empowered, not scared to lose something that was just, you sucking on the teat of the system. You have to learn how to come out into the wild and live like a wildcat off the land. There's no more being on a farm thinking everything's sweet. And then when stuff goes down, you don't know what to do. This is the time where you lock in, you learn who you are, and you could actually survive. So that's what I hope to, enlighten you guys with. I'm not acting like a guru, not acting like I know everything. I am literally just telling you the truth about how this works, and we've been doing this since 2014. So we've been at it, 12 years or so. Okay. By myself and the creator. That's it. By myself and the creator of the universe. That is it. There's no boss above me. If anything, you guys are technically the boss in a way. The market is the boss. Think of it that way. All right, guys. So my point is, there's no jobs in music industry. So when you talk about losing jobs, what are you talking about? So that's all I got to say. I have many more points, but to me, ethical AI does not exist. There's no such thing as ethical music AI. All right, y'all. If you want to learn more, come join us at busyworksbeats.com/premium. Leave your hot takes in the comments below. I don't block anybody. I'm not sensitive. Even if the system holds your comment, I'll unblock it. I'm not sensitive. All right, y'all. Peace.